Belmont County, Ohio is the home of many things. It is the home of pristine rolling hills that provide fertile land for farming. It is the home of Harley Warwick, the man who painted male patch tobacco ads on barns all across the eastern United States. Belmont County is the home of the Ohio Pumpkin Festival, held every September in Barnesville, Ohio. But there is something else that is found in Belmont County that represents the entire great state of Ohio in a very unique way. That special place is Dysart Woods. Dysart Woods is located about 7 miles off of Interstate 70, near the town of Belmont, Ohio, and Ohio University's eastern campus. Dysart Woods is a 455-acre forest owned by Ohio University. What separates Dysart Woods from most of Ohio's forests is the 50 acres of original uncut virgin forest that has been preserved. Chad Keister, founder of Dysart Defenders, explains the significance of these 50 acres.
And Ohio was once covered with 95% of old-growth forests, just like this one, but over the last 200 years we've lost 99.996% of our original ancient forest in Ohio. We only have these little remnants left, like Dysart Woods, that make up only 0.004% of the ancient forest that once covered our great state.
Dr. Brian McCarthy explains just how rare these type of forests are in Ohio.
This particular forest is designated by most vegetation ecologists as a mixed mesophytic forest. It's relatively unusual in the state of Ohio in terms of the old growth remnants that are left, because this may be the only remaining remnant of that particular vegetation type in the state.
So how were these 50 acres preserved when 99.9% of Ohio's original 25 million acres of forest were clear-cut? To answer this question, we have to go back about 200 years to the original settlers of this land. A man by the name of Miles Hart is recognized as the first owner of this land. He and his family moved here in 1813. The Harts preserved most of the farm's original forest through the years. In 1902, a man named Henderson Dysart acquired the land. The Dysarts built the farmhouse seen here out of timber from trees on the farm. But like the Harts, the Dysarts also chose to preserve most of the area's natural forest. The last Dysart to own the farm was school teacher Orion. When he died in 1959, the land was inherited by two of his nieces who sold the farm to the Nature Conservancy.
In 1959, the Dysart family was originally going to sell and log this forest, and John Kinder of the Nature Conservancy worked very hard hours to raise the funds to buy this forest and keep it from being logged. But then the Nature Conservancy wasn't able to pay back their loan, and Ohio University in 1966 took over the loan and took over ownership of Dysart Woods.
The typical accepted definition of an old-growth forest is a forest that looks as it would have naturally or before being altered by human beings. These forests account for less than 0.5% of the remaining forests in the eastern United States. Old-growth forests like Dysart Woods are important for many reasons. These rare forests are remnants of our natural environment. They provide habitat for many species of plants and animals, some of which cannot survive in unnatural conditions. A few of these species may one day provide humans with useful scientific purposes in fields such as medicine or agriculture. The most impressive sights as you walk through the old-growth portions of Dysart Woods are the enormous ancient trees.
The largest trees at Dysart Woods are probably the white oaks and the tulip poplars. The largest tree that had been at Dysart Woods up until about 5 years ago was a tulip poplar tree that was a little bit over 5 feet in diameter. This was the state record tree in the state of Ohio, but it has since been hit by lightning and has fallen to the ground. Currently, I believe the largest tree is a white oak in the forest, which is a little bit over 4 feet in diameter.
This tree here has been measured to be 503 years old through core samples, and it's 164 feet high, making it likely the highest tree in Ohio. It's certainly the highest tree here in Dysart Woods, and it's an incredible tree. You can see the sheer size of it. And her sister tree died recently and fell down, actually pulling up the bedrock. These two trees used to stand right next to each other. They're both white oaks and gigantic trees that you won't see anywhere else in Ohio.
The large trees at Dysart Woods are more than just a beautiful sight. They are also a very important part of the forest's natural ecosystem.
And here in an ancient forest, the trees, of course, are much larger, but there's a lot more to that. The trees also have a different structure. They're much taller and straighter, and their first limbs don't come off often up until 60, 70, or 80 feet above the ground, compared to a second growth forest where there's often the first limb comes up 5, 10, or 15 feet off the ground. So it's got a different structure, and there's also much different flora on the floor of the forest, and also the canopy is much higher and much thicker in these kind of a forest. Another thing that happens in ancient forest is the pit and mound structure, where when a tree falls down, like the one right next to us here, it pulls up a root ball and earth and creates a mound, and there's a pit right below it. And these pits can create wetlands where wild creatures can drink, and they can also create habitat, and they also help to stop erosion because water that's coming down the hillside will stop at these mounds and filter into the groundwater in the pits and not cause as much erosion down the hillside.
The role that these ancient trees play, both dead and alive, in an old-growth environment is very significant in maintaining a dynamic and active natural balance in the forest. The old-growth trees also help maintain a proper balance of light within the understory of the forest. This may help in keeping most invasive species that thrive in second-growth forests out of Dysart Woods.
Curiously enough, there are a large number of invasive species that are all around the second growth forest and around the edges of the old growth forest, except the old growth section of the forest itself. However, to the best extent that we can determine, most of these invasive or exotic species are unable to really penetrate the woods at this time, and we're hoping that they don't gain entry or don't gain access to the woods, and that if the woods is kept in a relatively stable, healthy condition over time, those will probably be prevented from entering the system, assuming that there's no other either man-made or natural disturbance that occurs in the woods, which would probably permit these species to enter.